Welcome to the all-new That Business Show 2.0 with your host, Jamie Maloney, where business becomes show business. Today, we're going to talk about the role of influencers in marketing, and I know I've talked about this on the program a lot of times. How do you reach that influencer status, too? So we're going to be getting into that topic today with Lindsey Carnett. She's the CEO and president of Marketing Maven. You can learn more at marketingmavenpr.com. So, Lindsey, welcome to the program today.
Thanks for having me.
So with the rise of social media and the internet, more and more people are able to achieve influencer status in smaller niche circles. You see this a lot of times in the speaking circuit and the podcasting circuit, and you can really have influence over your community. But first off, what does it mean to be an influence marketer?
To be an influence marketer, you have to have a certain, we like to say 2 or more platforms that you have a big following on. And it could be a blog, it could be a YouTube channel, it could be your Instagram, it could be your Facebook, it could just be a series of speaker things that you do. It just people that follow you for your subject matter expertise.
And so, you know, through the years, you know, I have done this podcast and I've built up my own community, and other people come along and they build up their shows, their podcasts, their blogs and whatnot. And it's difficult to get outside of that sphere of influence. Everybody has their own, you know, sphere of influence, your friends and your family. But how do you get outside of that sphere of influence and reach the people that you don't necessarily have a direct connection with, who just know you through your products?
Well, if you are an influencer yourself, then you have to branch out, just like, you know, going and meeting new people. So look for outlets. Maybe it's a different type of blog, or maybe it's a different subject matter that you can start commenting on to start building that database. And if you are a brand looking to reach a different target demographic, then you want to try and target influencers that speak to that target demographic. For example, if you're a beauty brand, you would try and target really big Instagram beauty influencers, or people that have beauty tutorials on YouTube.
Is it viable to then cater your marketing to the influencers within your sphere that you're trying to operate within? For instance, if you're trying to become, you know, a world-renowned speaker, should I be tagging Tony Robbins in every single thing I do? And how effective would something like that be?
Well, I think that you can't overuse certain people. I mean, there are, go to New York City, there are such things as social climbers. So I think to not be so obvious if you are trying to climb your way up the influencer ladder, but also be strategic too. And some of these strategic digital moves might be connecting with the right people on LinkedIn, following them on Twitter. Yes, you'll want to tag them and maybe give them credit for the type of inspiration that they've provided to you, so that people who follow you know that you got your inspiration from Tony Robbins or from these other influential people.
You know, we've really moved into an age of collaboration, and I've talked about this on the program before. You know, in years past, it was about, you know, what you knew and information, but today, people don't pay for information. They pay for really collaboration and who you know. And so in becoming an influencer is part of that whole collaborative age that we are becoming a part of. And there's so many different ways to become an influencer today. And I always, when I'm talking to millennials, I'm telling them, start a blog, start your LinkedIn, start something, because in 20 years, I wish I had done what I've done now when I was 20. I just started this 3 years ago, and I'm almost 40 years old now. I couldn't imagine where I would be if I'd been doing a podcast for 20 years. Of course, podcasting hasn't even been around for 20 years, just about, nonetheless. But to become an influencer, more and more people today have the ability to reach the millions versus what I had when I was a youngster. I mean, the internet was just coming onto the scene when I was about 18 and 20 years old. How are millennials today using these different things such as Instagram and blogs? Are they more cognizant of this reality that they could be an influencer?
I think definitely they're more cognizant of the reality. I think they're also delusional in some cases.
Right.
So I think, you know, it's kind of a double-edged sword. So if you are in college and you're posting pictures that are inappropriate, I mean, everybody thinks Snapchat is the end-all be-all to protect your privacy and, you know, photos that you don't want floating around the internet. But it starts from the social profiles that you set up, the type of content that you post on blogs. Babies now are having social footprints, and that didn't exist when we were kids. So I think that they have to be looking at that, but also looking strategically at, you know, a career path early on, or what it is that they are interested in, and just being authentic to things that interest them, because you could go down one path and then, as most high school and college kids do, and then think, okay, never mind, like I wanted to be a microbiologist and, you know, do biochemistry, and I changed my path and went into marketing, and now I market a lot of health products. So it kind of comes full circle. But that footprint is so important, because if you're able to leverage it appropriately, yes, there are millennials just sitting at home doing videos, making a huge amount of money every single month.
I'm still trying to figure out the YouTube thing. I've had a YouTube channel since I started this show, and I put all the videos up there, but I've never been able to make any headway on my YouTube channel. So I study these millennials and seeing what they're doing and how they are able to reach the masses. But there are so many different places where you could be an influencer. You could have a great, you know, presence on iTunes, but not on YouTube, maybe on your local radio station or a particular blog. That's the nice thing about social media and the internet as it exists today. There's a lot of different places where you could be an influencer, and you don't even have to be a business owner to be an influencer. I tell people that are working in their young age to begin building community, because there's going to become a time when you're unemployed and you're going to need a community to reach out to, and that's where LinkedIn and other social networks really come into play. How would you say?
I think that's absolutely true. I actually, when I interview job candidates, I ask them what type of materials have they contributed online. Of course, we do our own searches and look up every profile and look up the name and do background check and all that. But I want to see what type of content is on their blog, because it shows me what they're interested in. It shows me what their voice is. And I can get a sense of what type of campaigns they might like working on, or if they would be a good fit for the culture of my business. So, you know, not just about making money for influencers and millennials looking at, you know, how much am I going to get paid from advertising dollars or sponsored posts or whatever, but also once those dry up and you have to get a real job, as they like to say, then the employer will also take a look at those things.
What type of consistency do you recommend for somebody who's posting a blog? I see people that struggle with just doing something once a month. I was at the point where I was doing 4 blogs a day. Every single show I was doing a write-up of each one of my shows. I still do that to some degree, not to the level that I used to, but I would want to get back on that track again. But my content is mostly, you know, audio and video through the podcast. But for somebody who doesn't have access maybe to, you know, a studio or cameras, or is not comfortable with doing that, and they want to start a blog, how would you advise them to start a blog, and what should they focus on?
I think it's almost like setting any other goal. So you don't want to be so ambitious that you aren't going to be able to meet your goal. So if I said, I want to lose 30 pounds by the end of the month, I'm going to fail at that goal. But if I said, I want to lose 5 pounds per month, I can probably achieve that. And so I'll be more motivated to do it the following month. So I think to start out at a longer timeline is a positive thing. So if they can shoot to do 1 post per month, 1 post every other week, then the next one do, again, 1 post every other week, and then start doing it on a weekly basis, and then increase from there, it will be something that their audience starts expecting. So the biggest thing with all social media channels, we find with a lot of clients too, like when they're launching a product, they'll say, okay, great, let's get all the social going, and then they'll build a big audience, and then they're like, okay, we're good. And then we said, no, you're not good. You have to keep talking to these people. So it's the same thing with blogs too, where if you send out, like if you post on a Wednesday at 10 a.m., you should consistently try and post at Wednesday at 10 a.m. because people will start expecting your content to happen at that day, at that time, on a consistent basis. So, yeah, I mean, post as frequently as you can, but there is something to be said for the engagement level of your audience.
And people post continually on Facebook and other social media platforms. So I tell them, take that time that you're taking to post whatever rant or, cat video that you're posting on social media and parlay that into, your time spent on a blog, something that's productive and something of a meaningful value. Another way to become an influencer also is to start a Facebook group. I see more and more people doing that. Just another idea for people out there that are considering becoming some type of an influencer. Start a Facebook group. It's easier than what people give it sometimes. How would you say?
We have a fitness trainer, and her name is Rosalie Brown. She's based in Canada, and she's the spokesperson for the Simply Fit board. You must have seen it on TV. You twist and work your core. And this product has been in such high demand online that we started something called the 21-day challenge. So we made private Facebook groups, and Rosalie gets to interact with these people, and it's a lot more personal. And the affinity toward whoever's leading that group just grows more positively.
Currently talking to Lindsey Carnett, CEO and president of Marketing Maven, a public relations firm based in California. A lot of the guests through this podcast come through their service, and we're going to talk about their services and how you can get additional exposure and influence from public relation firms. And becoming a guest on podcasts is just another way to grow your influence. And we'll talk a little bit about that when we come back from the break. And we'll also talk about how you can get onto this show and what we look for when we book guests on this program. So again, new episodes each weekday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on thatbusinessnetwork.com. Find us on iTunes and on YouTube, and please subscribe and leave a review. It helps the program grow. So again, you've been listening to That Business Show 2.0 with your host, Jamie Maloney, where business becomes show business.
Hi, welcome to Yeager's. We just want to take a minute and show you what we're all about. At Yeager's, our primary business is hardwood flooring, although we are remodelers for kitchen, bath, and general construction. We operate a fleet of shop-at-home vans that have all the flooring type products: hardwood flooring, laminate flooring, tiles, stone, what have you. So we're able to come out first with products in our vehicles and take a look at the setting, how the colors will work, and then to be able to come up with some options and ideas for you. If that's not good enough, we have a large distribution center that we inventory product and have a nice display area.
Welcome back to That Business Show 2.0 with your host, Jamie Maloney, where business becomes show business. Today we're talking about becoming an influencer, and there are so many different outlets, so many different channels for you to become, a key person of influence, as we'll talk about sometimes on this program. And you don't have to be an influencer at a national level. You can be an influencer over your own local specific communities. And so it's important to start as early as possible and find your platform that you are going to produce upon to become an influencer. A great way to become an influencer is you can become a podcast host, but you can become a guest on a podcast. I've had many guests, probably nearly 1,500 people on this program, many of them coming through a Marketing Maven PR, which my guest today, Lindsey Carnett, is the CEO and president of. So Lindsey, let's talk a little bit more specifically about, the services that you offer through your PR firm. One of them is booking your guests on shows, podcasts, radio shows, things of that nature. How do you handle your clients? Take me through a typical client that you service.
So a typical client could, first of all, they fall into a particular vertical. So we have clients in the housewares category, so products that you find in your home. We have clients that are in the health and beauty category, so we do work with a lot of supplements, a lot of ingredients, a lot of beauty products, a lot of fashion products, and also in professional services, which is, maybe it could be cybersecurity, maybe it could be a law firm, and we help them with thought leadership, so people can find them more easily. A lot of what we do is tied into organic search engine optimization now. When somebody Googles your name or the name of the company, you want all of the most relevant information to populate.
When I think of a public relations firm, I think of press releases. Are you the type of firm who just puts out a press release for a business? What are the other components of a PR firm?
So a lot of people think that PR stands for press release. It doesn't. It stands for public relations. So let's get that out of the way. Well, press releases were used more 10 years ago than they're used today. They're used a lot for publicly traded companies because it's part of the requirements for shareholder disclosures to write a press release with the news and then put it on a wire service, which could be MarketWire, Business Wire, PR News Wire, and all of those qualify to meet the guidelines for disclosures. So today, when we pitch our clients to media, we use a pitch, which is simply an email to pique the interest of the producer. And we can either phone pitch or we'll email pitch. Sometimes we pitch media via Twitter, which is great, or sometimes through LinkedIn. So the communications channels are growing, but a lot of media don't just want to receive a press release because it kind of boxes them in.
And you also prepare, sheets, often referred to as like a one sheet, which, has the bio, potential questions. And that's great. That's one thing as a podcast host that I love, because I interview a lot of people on the spot. And sometimes I'm not even sure who I'm interviewing. I kind of figured them out as I go through the interview. But through services such as your own, you send the guests over, you can see their bio, you can see potential questions that you can ask them. And it really makes the host job easier. And so if you're trying to become an influencer and getting on other people's programs, using a service such as Marketing Maven PR is an excellent way to position yourself in front of the host, because when somebody says, hey, I'd like to be on your show, or somebody says, oh, you should put so-and-so on the program, it puts me in a difficult position because I'm not always certain, who they are, and people don't always communicate, their talking points to myself, and it can be a great benefit using public relation firms. Now, how are you today utilizing podcasts in radio shows and television shows? Are podcasts becoming more and more of a platform to get your guests or your clients on?
Podcasts are a growing medium. So we're actually doing podcast media tours, and that's something where we're able to book back-to-back podcasts, just as, the traditional radio media tour. Back in the day, there were just RMTs and SMTs, satellite media tours for television, and SMTs are extremely costly because you have to pay for, a production studio, a satellite feed, all of these bells and whistles for television coverage, and you're usually in smaller media markets. So it's good for establishing credibility for brands launching, but radio media tours and especially podcast media tours are a more efficient way to be able to do that. And podcasts have such specific audiences that it's really great because you get all of the data, and we have to show our clients what the referral traffic is to their website, for example. And so it's easy to track digital methods of communication, and podcasts help us do that.
Yeah, and podcasts, I spent 3.5 years on local radio, and I really do believe that podcasting is going to replace at least the AM radio down the line. And more people become podcast hosts, more and more people getting on podcasts each and every day. I joke oftentimes, millennials, I don't even think know how to find the AM band on radios or that it even exists anymore. And I spent 3.5 years there, and it makes me kind of sad too, because I grew up on radio. I'm a radio person. I always wanted to be on radio, but podcasting is the wave of the future, and it comes down to, like you said, analytics. With AM radio, you don't know who's listening to you. You don't have those metrics the way that you do with podcasting, and it's a great way to become an influencer, in a community. It's a great way to find out and learn from other people through their podcasts. It's also a great way to begin to help people talk in front of a camera or talk on screen. You say you have a client that comes to you, and they know they need to do the PR thing, but they're shy. They don't want to be out there talking or being in front of people. A podcast is a great way to start. Talk to us about this.
So exactly correct. So we do media training, and with the media training, we're pretending like we are the host of a show, and we're asking the questions to the client, and the client has to provide quick, snappy responses that are good sound bites. And it's different for a newspaper interview versus a magazine interview versus a radio interview versus a podcast interview versus a TV interview. TV interviews, hands down, are the hardest. Live TV interviews, a lot of people are like deer in the headlights. Mm-hmm. So it's really, really good practice to do podcasts, especially like we're doing on camera. Radio, you get away with just, being on the phone and hiding in the dark, or being in your office with nobody looking and you don't feel like anybody's around. But boom, once you're on camera, people just have a whole nother feeling, and I don't know, something triggers in the brain.
Podcast hosts are also more forgiving, and they'll allow like the guests to send them the questions that they want. TV hosts are probably not going to, do that. The radio guy's probably more quirky and is probably going to try to, make jokes on things. So the podcast hosts are more forgiving, and a lot of them are probably just as nervous as their guests. A lot of up and coming, just starting podcasters, and so don't be afraid to go after podcasts and get on them. There's so many of them, and it's such a growing marketplace out there. How have you seen podcasts grow in just the last few years alone?
I mean, just the audience sizes. I mean, the variety of podcasts too. So the different industries that podcasts are covering, and also the caliber of talent being interviewed is just increasing. There's a program that my husband listens to that is talking about different athletes, and there was a crossroads in their life, and it's a very personal story. And one is like, my mom had cancer, and one is, my dad was beating my mom, and at this time in my life, I decided to go this direction and start training for football. Or at this time, I stood up to this person, and that's been the catalyst for my successful career. So it's really, really personal tales from really, really high profile people. So I think a lot of shows like that are attracting a bigger audience of people, Joe Rogan, UFC. I mean, you're seeing it promoted through mainstream media and then channeled into a podcast where these relationships can be fostered.
Yeah, and it's also much more structured, and so after you go on a podcast as a guest, you can oftentimes get the audio, in some cases the video, put it up on your website, take advantage of the SEO advantages of it. With a TV appearance or a radio appearance that may be only a couple of minutes, you may get a few lines in there. Podcasts are designed to, listen to from the start to the end, and so it's a flow of questions centered usually around the guest if it's an interview format, and it's something that of value that you as a guest can use over and over again on your website. And I preach that all the time to people that come onto this program.
I'm happy you preach that, because a lot of what we do is educating clients on how to use the editorial coverage they get to grow their businesses. So it could be doing a search engine optimized press release that has embedded backlinks. It could be taking that podcast, posting it through their social channels, maybe putting some budget behind it to boost it so it goes out to a wider audience. And then looking at the referral traffic on their Google Analytics to see who went to their website as a result of those different media placements.
For people that are listening that are interested in getting on podcasts that are out there, marketingmavenpr.com is your website. Do you offer just base packages for people that say, you know, let me do this podcast circuit?
Yeah, I mean, all of what we do is based on the client needs. So, I mean, we have very small clients and we have very large clients. So it's a very wide range, and our goal is to take a very small client and grow them larger. And that's really what we love, is helping people grow their businesses. So yes, everybody starts somewhere, and just to get out there and start doing interviews is a really positive thing.
Marketingmavenpr.com is a place to start. Lindsey Carnett, CEO and president of the PR firm based out in LA. Thank you so much for being with me on the program today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And again, marketingmavenpr.com. Find out more about this program, thatbusinessnetwork.com, where new episodes air each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you'd like to come onto this program, tbsinterview.com for more information. And find us all across social media, facebook.com/thatbusinessshow, and also on Twitter @thatbizshow. So again, you've been listening to the all-new That Business Show 2.0. I'm Jamie Maloney, where business becomes show business.